This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Hi, and welcome back to Realistic Sustainability. I'm Mike, and I'm here with Nick.
Hey, how you doing, brother?
I am not too bad. I'm a little tired today. It's been a very busy day, but other than that, I'm happy to be recording.
Well, that's good. I'm happy that you're happy. I am happy now. My day has not been bad, but it has not been wonderful.
It has?
We had some problems today.
What kind of problems did you have today?
Well, I will preface that with this is a first world problem, meaning that it doesn't really matter. But we went to the grocery store today to do a little extra shopping for, the season. And I told the missus, Dad, let's not take your car. Your car scares me. Let's take the truck. Your car needs work done. I said those words. We went shopping. Shopping trip was great. We're coming out of the store, and I could just barely see under the pickup truck. And I was like, that looks really, really, really frustrating. Heather was like, what? And I was like, well, I'm not sure, but I'll bet money there's a flat tire on the back of our truck. That's a best case scenario. The truck is fine, and I'm seeing a flat tire in someone else's car. Worst case scenario, we got to call the tow guy. When we get to the truck, sure enough, got a flat tire. And not just like a little flat. I mean flat to where the tire was falling off the bead. Like it was bad.
Really?
Yes.
Makes you wonder how you got there.
Oh, ironically enough, someone else asked me that question too. And I'll tell you the same thing I told him. I don't know. I didn't actually check the tires before we left, which I should have because I do have a bad habit of getting flat tires with those pickup trucks. But I just hopped in. It drove fine on the way there. It didn't pull or anything, so it never even occurred to me to look.
Yeah, you might have picked something up in the parking lot. That's tough, man. I'm sorry. That's a rough way to go.
It was a terribly frustrating way to go. And then, to add insult to injury, like I said, first world problem. We were really hungry, so when we waited for the guy to come with the jack and everything, we walked back into the store, and we got food out of their deli. So I'm sitting there in this pickup truck cocked out of this 45-degree angle because one tire is on the rim on the ground. And I'm eating I don't know, at this point, probably 2-hour-old chicken wings that are ice cold. And like potato wedges that were probably past their prime at 9 o'clock in the morning, but it's 11:30 now. It was not a good end to a decent shopping trip. And I don't even like to shop, but it wasn't terrible until that moment.
Oh, well, I am definitely sorry. I also went shopping today and was lucky to come out to have 4 inflated tires.
Oh, you fortunate man, you.
Well,
I'm green with envy.
Here we are. We are here to record yet again. And this week we want to talk about electronics, electronic waste, the future of electronics. I think I confused you a little bit when I first sent you this.
You absolutely did. So usually when I get the topics, whether it be an hour in advance or a few days in advance, they kind of make sense and they just kind of click. This one, the future of electronics, I just kind of was not stunned. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, but I didn't really know where we were going with this because I assumed the future of everything is about the same. It has a certain period of time where it's usable, and then at some point it's thrown away or it's disassembled and recycled or repurposed. But electronics, they pump them out so fast, and everything new today is outdated tomorrow.
Yeah, Moore's Law.
I had literally no idea where you were going with this.
Well, and for those who don't know Moore's Law means that computing strength or capabilities doubles every 18 months, which means that a lot of our electronics within 2 or 3 years are seen as ancient and at many times not even functional for today's world. As our conversation about laptops just before this, I've had times where my wife was like, hey, this laptop, it's brand new. It's only 8 years old. And 8 years old in laptop years is a grandpa.
Oh, for sure. And I was just talking to my kids about cell phones. They were complaining about their phones. And then I brought up a phone, my first smartphone was called the HTC, I think it was called the Evo. And I loved that phone. And I bragged about it for a solid 20 minutes. And I was like, I wish I could have that phone again. But then I thought about it. And if I could even get that phone to function on with today's, stuff, it wouldn't even run like Facebook. Like it wouldn't even have the computing power to run a third of the apps that my phone does. My current phone has 64 gigs of RAM. The phone that I use has 4 times, well, no, I'm sorry, not 4 times, 8 times what this computer I'm on does.
Mhm.
Like I spent a lot of money on this phone, and it's not even a high-end phone. So it's, to put it in perspective, you don't realize, like, yeah, everyone has those memories of yesteryear, technology they loved, especially our generation that grew up playing video games and stuff. But that ancient phone would be useless today.
Well, and part of our discussion is looking at the history of electronics, where in the past, NASA had a computer the size of a room, and now you have a computer in your pocket. We
Yeah.
are using less material, but up until recently, almost none of it has ever been recycled. Almost all of computer boards, since we've been using computer boards, are either landfilled in the United States or shipped overseas to developing nations to deal with in their country.
Well, okay, so one of those is really bad, and one of those, it sounds worse than it really is. If there's a developing country that just doesn't have the financial capabilities of buying state-of-the-art technology, I don't see anything wrong with selling them or, giving them old technology if it's better than what they have.
Well, if it worked, almost everything that gets shipped overseas is considered scrap, where they attempt to quite literally use a fire to separate as many materials as possible, releasing tremendous amount of negative, harmful emissions. Just it's a bad scenario, bad enough that China no longer accepts it from us.
Well, it is bad. There's a number of different ways you can extract those precious metals that don't involve a fire. The other reason being that in this country, because we do either produce so much of these kinds of goods or pay to have so many of these kinds of goods produced, either way, it would have been a lot more beneficial for us, a decade and a half ago, to be recycling all of our old stuff and to cut down the initial cost of a lot of these products, because there's a lot of precious metals in those boards.
Well, and that's where they're focused at. Remember, I think it was early 2000s when you started to see, and cell phone carriers are the ones who really went with it, about buying back old phones, where they'll give you $2, $5, $10 towards your next phone if you just bring back that old phone and trade it in.
Yeah, well, in our episode with Rob, you mentioned your telecommunications experience. I remember when I was on your plan specifically, Sprint would credit your account if you traded in an old phone towards your next upgrade, or any time you could do it, and they would just put, $2, $5, whatever it came to, on your account. But they never gave you any literature as to what they were going to do with it. There was no reading to explain what they did with the phones. They were just doing a buyback program.
Well, and it's funny because they positioned it as, hey, we're just trying to help. We're just, there's millions and millions of these boards sitting in trash heaps and landfills all over the world. We're just trying to help. Well, it was so they could recover precious metals. As more and more metals become scarce, it's harder and harder to keep the price down, mass produce, and get these out to consumers at reasonable prices. They needed some of those materials back. So there's just as many boards in landfills. There's just as many pieces of cell phones in landfills all over the United States and all over the world. It wasn't less. They didn't reuse the boards or the keypads or the screens.
They just pulled the metal out of them.
They've pulled the metals, the golds, the silvers, the platinums. All those pieces are coming out.
Well, I mean, it's not that hard to do. You can do it two ways. I'm sure there's more than two, but the two ways I've done it personally is muriatic acid works, which is the dangerous way of the two. And the other way is to build almost like a kiln. I mean, essentially build a clay pot, furnace, however you want to word it, and you can get it hot enough to where, like, you reach the melting point of gold and it will come out. It just takes a lot of work. And you've got to be careful. There's a lot of danger in it. But you can pull the metals out without burning them to a crisp. But it's hard work, and I've probably only done it twice, maybe 3 times.
Well, because we've spent 50 years burying it in small quantities all over the planet, it's becoming a problem. I mean, there's
Yeah.
going to be a time, where they start contracting landfills as mining locations and start searching again for these trace amounts and tiny amounts of these materials to help continue to build, because electronics is still growing. We're still using more and more. And as more countries develop, they're going to need massive amounts of materials. For an example, when India became a market, became an emerging market,
Uh-huh.
things just went through the roof. The consumption of scarce metals jumped dramatically. And we're going to see it again with Africa.
Oh, I don't doubt it, because these aren't just, India and Africa are two, I mean, they're kind of extreme situations in the sense where the populations are ridiculously large. And so it's going to be almost no market for it to a really big market very quick. And that's a problem. And I mean, it's great that countries are getting more and more advanced in their technology and their economies, and everything is improving, but it's a supply and demand kind of thing. And if the supply isn't there, it just drives the cost of everything else up.
Well, and it's a double-edged sword. You have a production process that is highly energy intensive.
Yes.
You're talking about, we have to mine the crust of the planet. We have to search for these materials. It requires heat to melt down and purify. The manufacturing process for electronics is very energy intensive. Just for an electronic to be considered viable and usable for maybe 3 to 5 years. Now you take that and it's not just Europe and the United States. It's not just Europe, United States, and China. It's becoming the whole world. The total amount of electronics we're going to need is going to shoot through the roof.
Oh, absolutely. Because there was a long time where a handful of the countries in the world defined the world's economy, where some countries were just booming and amazing, and there was a lot of places that weren't. But as time goes on, those smaller countries, those places that were considered at one point maybe even third world, are getting better. They're improving. They're getting assistance from other countries. They're being taught different things. They're getting better education, and they're, a lot of it is good infrastructure, where a lot of those countries never had clean water and clean, like bathroom facilities at their disposal. There's still places in the world where people bathe in the river.
Well, and don't get me wrong, this is a problem with electronics, but this is a good thing for humanity. That means some of these places where people didn't have the best way of life are getting better. They're being pulled up into this in a better form of living, and that is good. But there is some downside to that when it comes to consumption.
I completely agree. Well, I think that if we're being honest, with every good and bad topic, there's two sides to every coin with this stuff. So I agree. The consumption aspect of it's one thing, but it is a good thing that the countries are improving. I never considered this, Mike. I never even thought about this kind of stuff until, 15 minutes ago.
Well, the other reason why we have to think about this stuff is because for sustainability purposes, how do we continue this for the next 20, 30, 50, 100 years? I don't think you can. And what we have right now when it comes to electronics is a linear model. And it's a very short and very small linear model of production, which is make it, consume it, dispose of it. And that just isn't going to work in the long run.
Well, no, it doesn't work in the long run because
there's only so much to dispose of. There's only so much to make with.
There's only so much to dispose of and make with. You are completely right, but there's also only so much to recycle. Like you already said, the stuff, most of it's in landfills. Not to say that there's not a lot of stuff lying around that you can recycle, true, but if we're talking 20 years, 30 years of motherboards and wiring and power supplies just buried, that's hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of pounds of these metals and plastics and rubbers that are just sitting on the ground, and they're not biodegrading. If anything, any steel might be corroding into rust, but the silvers and the coppers and the gold is just chilling there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now it's no longer even in centralized locations. Like when they mine stuff, they know they have a certain amount roughly in this area. Now it's spread all over the planet. And it's going to make it very, very challenging to meet these future needs. And that's why that linear model is so it's so scary to me, because there are ideas out there, but very few companies subscribe to them at this point, which is like the circular economy, where everything that you put into a product comes around full circle, and you pull everything you need from that old product to make your new products. But that is few and far between, and honestly, I don't know many that subscribe to it now. I would consider it still a theory in some sense.
Well, I think it's a good concept. I think that what it does is limits you on the amount of new products you're able to produce. I mean, not to say you can't produce new stuff, but I would assume with that kind of model, it doesn't allow a lot of wiggle room for investing in the R&D of new things. I mean, obviously, when I say new, I don't mean the new version of the same phone. I mean like a brand new product. Because I know you had mentioned earlier that Apple being a company that has a machine that takes apart all their phones.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a wonderful idea. And I think that is something that probably could be applied in other places, not just phones, tablets, computers. I mean, all this stuff comes together with a few screws. It's not like it's hard to take apart. But
yeah, it takes it apart in just, it's like 8 seconds. It absolutely just takes an Apple phone and separates it into its individual components in less than 10 seconds.
Well, that's something that I think they should apply. I honestly think, like you have a 3D printer, they should make that machine commercially available to smaller companies. It would save so many companies so much money if they had a machine that could just pull their old products apart. Because if you had to think about it, if you had to pay someone, just pay like a general laborer, minimum wage, to sit there in your yard all day long and pick up broken phones and laptops and unscrew them and separate the boards and then take capacitors off and take chips off. And like literally, it would take him hours to do one piece. It would take him hours to do one computer.
You also have to worry about if the guy who's doing these separation of parts are putting them in the right bins so that your right size screws are in the right places. I mean, there's a lot of things going on when it comes to attempting to recycle these things. What I do like about with Apple is that they are separating these parts and using what they can, including the screws. They're inside the machine, they're inside. It doesn't matter if they have a minor flaw.
Well, no, I agree with that. And to be honest, it's metal. And so if it's metal, that means at some point, like you already said, it had to be mined, it had to be refined, processed, turned into, smelted, forged, whatever term you want to use. That takes a raw product to a screw or to a nut or to a bracket or to a capacitor, whatever process it takes, that still had to happen. So why not, if it's reusable, reuse it?
Well, and I think what we're going to see when we start looking at the future of electronics is a lot like how your desktop computer used to be able to be upgraded on a regular basis. Where you could remove certain pieces, and if you were reasonably competent, you could do it yourself, but you could always take it in and be upgraded also.
Yeah.
Where you can just buy the new board. You can just buy the new piece that makes it better. You can buy a new screen and they just keep the same housing, pull off the pieces, put the screen on, put all the pieces back in. Because in some countries, companies are held to a standard where they have to deal with the waste they create. So, for an example, if Sony was producing something in Europe, they have to take it all back. They have to take all that back anyways and deal with the waste because they're the ones that made it. And you're going to see more and more companies have to do that in more and more countries. So to combat that, they're just going to have to standardize a lot of the equipment and a lot of the sizes.
I don't think that's a terrible idea. And I think that, so here's what I think. I think that the actual shell of it, not the exterior, but the interior should have a standard bracket size where on the inside, they can upgrade it and change it and everything. But if someone, let's say someone has a outside shell they really like, that should be able to be popped onto anything. And I'm not sure if people are that particular about the way their televisions look on the outside, like the aesthetic aspect of it, as people are about their computers.
What about their phones? A lot of people like the looks of their phones.
Yeah, I am one of those. I don't like a really giant phone. A lot of the times the phones I have are quite large. I prefer a smaller, compact phone. Not like a flip phone. Like I want a smartphone. I want to be able to do what I need to do, and I do all my social media on those kinds of things. So, but like the phone I have right now is like 2/3 the size of a tablet. It's bigger than my hand. It's like 8 inches by 4 inches. I mean, it's huge. You can almost commit murder with it.
But people they do draw towards specific kinds. And if that frame could stay the same and the guts could be changed on a regular basis, because think about this, what I use and what you use are different. And what our parents use and what we use are different. Just because I say I'm done with this and turn it in and they upgrade it doesn't mean that the guts from mine isn't an upgrade to someone else.
No, that's completely true. And then back to Apple. Generally speaking, when they release a new version of the iPhone, the only real difference will be one feature. So, like, there's iPhones 4 and 5 are inherently the same phone. The difference is the Siri. Siri is on the 4S and the 5, but the phones look identical. Like, hardware-wise, they actually look the exact same case. All the features are the same. I believe the 5 was a little faster processing-wise. And then I'm not overly familiar with all of the generations of iPhones, but I know they usually go in 2s and 3s, where 2 or 3 will look identical. Or there'll be one, and it may be like an iPhone 7, but it'll have 2 or 3 different models with it that you can choose from, like the same general hardware. And regardless of how this started, maybe they produced too many units of one model, and then so for the next model they just upgraded the inside and continue using the outside they already had built to cut their cost. However it happened, it did happen like that, and now it seems to be kind of a going thing. So there's a lot of models of iPhones that look identical, and this is a 6, this is a 6S, this is a 7, this is that. Okay, well, they all look the exact same, and I'm not complaining. I kind of think that more things should be like that. You know, so the phone I have is called the LG Stylo 6. It's essentially identical to my 4. I mean, it looks almost the exact same. It's got one extra camera lens on the back for panoramic and 3D shots, which honestly the camera on this thing is hot garbage, so it doesn't matter. But it's identical. It's the same pieces.
Well, I think what's going to happen is that in the future, we're going to see that this is how an Apple looks. This is how a Samsung looks. This is how an LG looks, where they have one defining look. And then they're upgradable or replaceable, but they're still going to be the same casing. There's still going to be all these pieces that are reusable, because the first company that pulls it off, let's be honest, the first company that pulls this off is going to have a much lower cost than the other companies. Because in the circular economy, you really want each piece to go from the production phase to the use phase. And when it gets to the recycle phase, or, quote unquote disposal phase, it all comes back to the company so that they can reuse it all. So I really feel like that's where it's going to go, where this is what an Apple phone looks like. This is what a Galaxy looks like.
Well, I think that would be a fantastic concept. And really, if the company that is able to pull that off cuts their costs, so in theory, as long as their technology was good, it should cut the prices too. And if a company could have a phone that's as powerful as the newest iPhone, but for half or maybe 60% of the price, I think they would probably change the game. I mean, you're looking at $1,000 for an iPhone. Well, if you can get that same hardware, that same performance for $600, that's a no-brainer.
Right. And it won't stop with just phones. I'm hoping televisions, any kind of electronics, laptops, computers, tablets, will all function under that same model, where you just take it into the store, they take it apart, they put the new guts and pieces back into it, they clean it up, and they send it back to you as they would if you bought a refurbished one.
That's actually, yeah, because so what? You go to the store, you could buy a brand new 70-inch TV for $1,000, or we could upgrade your 50-inch with the new 4K blah 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 for $400. If you're happy with the size you have, then just upgrade it. I would.
Yeah, sure. I think as soon as it was available, about a third of people would immediately do the upgrade options. Over time, I think the only time they switch from one to the other is if one's defining look is a little different, or some company has decided they can do a little more on the upgrading than others.
I agree. And as you know, we share a couple friends that are in the IT field. I mean, they're tech guys. And both of them have two personality characteristics that are kind of counterintuitive to each other, and I think it's hilarious. They both always want the newest, latest, greatest technology, whatever makes life easier, they want it. They also get horribly attached to old things and hate change. So that would be, and I'm not saying all tech guys are like that, but I know quite a few that are. And I think they would, of all people in that field, I think they would take to that. I think that if you could give them the same feel that they're comfortable with and they really enjoy, but with tomorrow's performance, I think that's a no-brainer. And you know how you and I have talked many times about people don't like change. I think that's a good way to meet them in the middle. I think that a big demographic of society would be all for that.
I think so too. So I hope as we move forward in society that the circular economy, the reusability of electronics becomes more mainstream. So if you're listening to this, stay on the lookout for things like that. Recycle more of the electronics because it is going to help in the long term. Not only can we reduce emissions, not only can we reduce shipping pieces from all across the world, chasing scarce metals. Again, what is an upgrade to me may not be an upgrade to you. But all these pieces can be reused until obsolescence, where we remove every material from it and reuse every single piece to make the next version. I hope you've enjoyed this show. Appreciate you listening. If you enjoyed it, share it with a friend. Put it on social media. We appreciate you listening. I'm Mike, and I'm here with Nick.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next week.
If you have the desire to be sustainable but are unsure of what can go in the recycling bin, or you're constantly forgetting the reusable grocery bags, check out Starting Sustainability, the podcast. Don't be frustrated or confused anymore. Starting Sustainability was created to help those beginning their sustainable journey. Each week, we give ideas on simple concepts you can easily incorporate into your current lifestyle. We also share stories of what works and what doesn't, so you don't have to waste your time and money. Check out Starting Sustainability, available everywhere you listen to podcasts.